In the world of Final Fantasy VII, Sephiroth stands as one of the most complex and compelling figures. His journey from a celebrated hero to an ominous villain rooted deeply in fears and desires unmet. At the core of his Enneagram type, we find the characteristics of a Type 3, the achiever, driven by a profound need for validation and success. Yet this is no ordinary achiever's tale. Sephiroth's early life, shadowed by secrets of his origin, twists his core motivation into something far darker. His core desire for admiration and acknowledgement morphs into a relentless pursuit of supremacy when confronted with the unsettling truth about his creation. Born from a shadowy experiment, Sephiroth was meant to embody perfection, a beacon for the soldier program. This formative ecosystem, rife with empires, crystal mythology, and the weight of war, taught him that worth was intrinsically tied to strength and power. Here, his survival rule was established: excel beyond all others, or risk becoming obsolete. The defense mechanisms built around this rule constructed a facade of invincibility, but beneath lay a vulnerable fear of obsolescence and betrayal. The psychological landscape of his upbringing offered few who could see past his mask. In Hojo, the scientist responsible for his creation, Sephiroth finds a twisted sense of validation, but also the source of his deepest wound. Hojo, lacking empathy and parental warmth, activated Sephiroth's core wound of rejection and inadequacy, pushing him further into isolation. Similarly, the entity Genova, masquerading as his biological mother, becomes both a symbol of his lost humanity and a catalyst for his eventual downfall. In contrast, Cloudstrife, another product of the soldier program, serves as a distorted mirror to Sephiroth's psyche. Initially seeking his approval, Cloud's journey from admiration to adversary becomes a significant narrative tension. It's in defiance of people like Cloud, who remind him of a different path, that Sephiroth's shadow emerges more vividly. The bond, or lack thereof, with these characters shapes the relentless drive that propels him into villainy, amplifying his Type 3 traits twisted by a lack of emotional grounding. Throughout his chronological arc, each turning point in Sephiroth's story is an echo of his core motivation, distorted by misunderstanding and isolation. His identity injury becomes domination, a bid to rewrite the world in his image where his superiority is unquestioned. The moment he uncovers his origins, his sense of exceptionalism mutates into entitlement, viewing others not as equals but as lesser beings to be dominated or discarded. This belief system, unchecked, leads to his ultimate confrontation with Cloud and the others, a battleground not just of physical might but of psychological warfare. In this descent, we see the archetype of the fallen hero, where the hero's journey becomes irrevocably intertwined with that of the shadow. The shadow, in psychological terms, is the part of the psyche that harbors the unknown, the repressed. For Sephiroth, this manifests in the cold, calculating need to assert dominion over the planet, a reflection of his inner void and the power struggles he witnessed and embodied in his formative years. Yet, even as we trace this dark path, there's a question of growth, of what might have been had Sephiroth's strategy become more flexible and healthy. What if the young hero had found genuine connection, a mentor who saw beyond his soldier persona to the person beneath? In narratives of growth, we look for moments of repair, but Sephiroth's environment offered few such opportunities. His journey becomes a cautionary tale of identity without grounding, highlighting the necessity of emotional connection amidst power and expectation. Drawing this examination to a close, we turn the lens back to ourselves. What survival rules do we live by, and are they helping us become who we aspire to be? In this reflection lies the universal human experience, where the story of Sephiroth becomes a mirror. By examining his descent, we are invited to question our own beliefs and the stories we tell ourselves about worth, power, and belonging. In the end, Sephiroth's tale is a reminder of the delicate balance between who we are and who we might become if driven by fear rather than connection. As we delve deeper into the psychological nuances of Sephiroth's transformation, we must consider the primary wound that drives his actions, his discovery of the truth about his origins. This moment serves as a critical pivot point, not just in Sephiroth's story but as a reflection of a universal human experience, the shattering of long-held beliefs and the subsequent identity crisis that ensues. In the Enneagram framework, Sephiroth's behavior and inner turmoil align with the Type 8 personality, the Challenger. This type is characterized by a fundamental fear of being harmed or controlled by others, leading to a desire for self-protection through strength and dominance. Sephiroth's initial embodiment of the heroic warrior quickly morphs into a more sinister version of this archetype, a tyrant who seeks to control the narrative of his own origin and, by extension, the fate of the entire planet. His core fear of vulnerability is amplified by the revelation of his genesis, catalyzing a defensive mechanism where perceived strength and superiority become his primary mode of operation. This is the essence of the shadow archetype, where the suppressed parts of the self emerge, often aggressively, in response to deep-seated fears. For Sephiroth, the acknowledgement of vulnerability triggers a compensatory over-identification with his perceived strengths, leading him down a path of destruction and isolation. The interplay between Sephiroth's conscious and unconscious motivations brings forward the trickster archetype, a figure that embodies disruption and chaos, often catalyzing transformation but also inviting peril. Sephiroth's quest for domination is not merely a desire to rule, it is an attempt to reconcile his disjointed sense of self through supremacy. The irony lies in the fact that his perceived strength becomes his greatest weakness, blinding him to the potential for true growth and understanding. In juxtaposition, Cloudstrife, the protagonist and Sephiroth's nemesis, represents the hero archetype's evolution from a state of confusion and self-doubt to one of clarity and purpose. Cloud's journey is a narrative of integration, where the hero confronts the shadow not just in the external sense but within himself. The battles between Cloud and Sephiroth are not mere clashes of swords, they are symbolic confrontations of identity, where each strike is a test of self-awareness and resilience. Sephiroth's inability to integrate his shadow is further complicated by his isolation from genuine human connection. His relationships are transactional, driven by power and control rather than empathy and understanding. This disconnect from others reflects a fundamental split within himself, a refusal to acknowledge the parts of his psyche that he deems weak or unworthy. The lack of a nurturing mentor or guiding figure exacerbates this fragmentation, leaving Sephiroth to navigate his inner turmoil alone. The question of what could have been is a poignant reminder of the potential for redemption and growth that lies within all individuals. Had Sephiroth encountered figures who could have guided him towards self-acceptance and emotional maturity, his path might have diverged significantly. The presence of a mentor archetype, one who could have mirrored back his potential for good rather than focusing solely on his prowess, might have offered a different narrative, one where power is balanced with compassion. In examining these dynamics, we are reminded of the interplay between environment and psyche. Sephiroth's descent into darkness is not just personal, it is systemic, rooted in the values and structures of the world he inhabits. His story illustrates the dangers of an environment that prioritizes power over empathy, success over connection. It underscores the critical role of community and the need for spaces where vulnerability is not seen as weakness but as a path to true strength. As we resonate with Sephiroth's journey, we see a reflection of our own struggles with identity and belonging. The Enneagram invites us to explore these themes within ourselves, to confront the shadows we carry, and to strive for an integration that embraces every facet of our being. It challenges us to question the narratives we perpetuate and the systems we uphold. In doing so, we find the potential for transformation, not just in our personal lives, but in the collective story we are all a part of. Thus, Sephiroth becomes more than a character. He is a symbol, a cautionary tale of the paths we might tread when fear governs our actions and connection is sacrificed at the altar of power. His narrative invites introspection, urging us to consider the ways we might rewrite our stories, shifting from domination to collaboration, from isolation to community. We are left to ponder the ultimate question: How might we, unlike Sephiroth, transcend our fears and embrace the wholeness of our humanity?